Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We're bringing you audio recorded at the Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup, and we ran across a frequent guest on the show, Roger Phillips with Idaho Fish and Game, who's doing some seminars about big game hunting in the Gem State. Roger, great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, John. Great to be here.
Let's first off talk about elk hunting in Idaho. As everybody knows, the wolves took a real bite out of the elk herds in Idaho, and a lot of hunters think that hasn't changed, but that's not true, is it?
No, it really isn't. We're looking at our 2017 harvest. We're getting some good preliminary data back. It's not finalized, but it looks like we're going to have a top 5 all-time elk harvest in the state, and we've got a lot of growing herds in a lot of areas, and hunters are just really having a great time out there hunting them.
And 2016 was also a really good year too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It wasn't far behind, but last year we issued more cow tags. That's probably responsible for some of that increase, but not all of us. Obviously, the elk are there, and hunters are finding them.
So what are the key areas to find elk in Idaho anymore? I mean, it used to be the River of No Return Wilderness. There was the Lolo area. You always heard about that, but you also heard about those areas being really hard hit by wolf predation. Has that changed, or are those still good areas to hunt?
Those areas are our traditional elk hunting areas, and we haven't seen the recovery in those areas, but where we've seen some great rebounds is kind of in that interface with the front country and the back country, especially in some of those ag lands. And those elk seem to have settled a little lower than they normally are. They aren't always going way back into the back country, which can be a real benefit for hunters because they're a little more accessible.
Speaking of the ag lands, you actually have a special hunt that takes place just on agricultural lands, don't you?
Yeah, we have several of those throughout the state where some of those herds have become a nuisance. We have it up in the Palouse area, we have it in the Weiser area, and some over in the Salmon area. And there are some opportunities for over-the-counter cow tags in those areas.
Well, let's talk about tags, because just about every big game hunter I know, now is application period, and they're hoping to get tags in Wyoming. They're hoping to get tags in Montana. They're hoping to get tags in Washington or Oregon. But what about Idaho? I never hear about people filling out applications for tags in Idaho, and I guess there's a good reason for that, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a real good reason. We're kind of how everybody else used to be. You still get to show up in Idaho and buy a tag and go hunting, and we do limit our non-resident tags to about 15,000 for deer and 12,000 for elk, but those are available on a first-come, first-served basis. And the question we frequently get is, well, are your general hunts any good? And actually 75% of our deer get killed during general hunts, and about 60% of our elk get killed during general hunts. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there.
Let's talk about areas to hunt in Idaho for the different species, and we'll start with deer, especially the mule deer, but we can talk about white-tailed deer too. Where are hunters going to get their deer during the general hunt?
Yeah, for our mule deer hunting, it's central and southern Idaho, and then the farther you go north, the more likely you'll encounter whitetails. And last year was kind of a rarity, or we actually had a higher whitetail harvest than we did a mule deer harvest, and we've got some really generous seasons up in the north and central parts in the Clearwater area. For whitetails, it's a great opportunity, especially for folks who are interested in hunting mule deer in their own state in October, and then they can come over and hunt in November for whitetails during the rut.
That's really interesting, because I think, by and large, most people associate Idaho with mule deer hunting, not whitetail deer hunting.
Yeah, and it's almost a tough sell for them because it's kind of ingrained in them, but our whitetail seasons are long, a lot of either sex hunting, and they just have some great opportunities there. And people have discovered it. People have been doing it for years, but you're right, a lot of people associate Idaho with mule deer, and it was kind of a rare instance because of the way our winter went last year, and we also cut back on some antlerless tags for those mule deer to help them recover. And at the same time, our whitetails are real strong and stable, and they actually exceeded the harvest over our mule deer. Let's say that's a fairly rare occurrence.
And when it comes to the elk, we talked about the fact that they're going into these ag lands, but we didn't talk about where to find elk in the Gem State.
Over on the western part of the state in our Weiser River area, up in the Palouse area is another area where we have some of those opportunities, and then over in the Salmon area all have some of those kind of agricultural hunts, and a lot of times those start before a regular season too. So they're pretty specialized hunts. They can be challenging because to do them effectively, you're going to want to get landowner cooperation and permission. But yeah, it's a pretty unique hunt for those.
And I guess that's the last question. Getting landowner permission early is very helpful, but Idaho does have a lot of public land to hunt.
Oh yeah, we're at 68% publicly owned in the state, so that's another great opportunity for folks is, you got room to get out, find your own personal hunting spot, and, you can get away from the crowds or you can join them if you want. It's your call. It's a pretty steep, rugged state, and that keeps a lot of people at bay, but it also attracts a lot of people too.
Roger, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
Yeah, last year we sold out both of our non-resident deer and elk tags, and they sold out right about the time those seasons started. So folks who are interested in coming to Idaho, don't wait till the last minute. I'd be looking at, summertime, making a decision to make sure those tags are still available.
Well, there you go, folks. Some great advice on timing for buying those tags and some great reasons to go to Idaho. Because as you just heard from Roger, Idaho is back when it comes to big game hunting. Whether you're after mule deer, whether you're after whitetails, or whether you're after Rocky Mountain elk, Idaho's got it all for you. What's the website where folks can find out more, Roger?
idfg.gov.
idfg.gov. That's just idfg.gov, or just Google Idaho Fish and Game. You'll get there in a hurry and start making plans for a big game hunt this fall. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.